Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of The Source. I'm your host, Jim Stroud, and with me today is a very special guest. Special guest, tell us, who are you and what do you do?
Hey, Jim, it's good to see you. Paul DeBettignies. I'm here in Minneapolis. I've been sourcing, recruiting, building tech teams for 25 plus years. Uh, Not a fake backdrop. This is one of our co-working spaces here in Minneapolis that I always do my best work at. So hopefully it'll bring out my wisdom for you.
Very good. When I think of Minneapolis, the first thing I think about is Prince. Have you ever met Prince or seen him in concert there?
So I wasn't that cool back in the day when he was cool.
Mm,
Everyone I Nearly everyone has gone by his house. It's still there. Paisley Park is still in existence. It's now a bit of a museum.
yeah.
Um, and they've also named the road in front of him or in front of his place now. It's not a major road, but they've now named it after him as well. So yes.
Very cool. Very cool. Um, we were talking off camera a few minutes ago about the state of the sourcing
Yeah.
industry. And I mentioned how I've been to a couple of conferences recently, and actually three conferences this year. And when this topic of sourcing comes up, it's generally I get a sense of anxiety.
Yeah.
People wondering, is it going to go away? Should I get a new career?
Yeah.
What do that kind of thing. So in our conversation, we were sort of arguing, playing devil's advocate, arguing why it wouldn't go away. For the benefit of those listening to my rambling, would you mind restating some of the reasons why you think sourcing will never go away as a standalone career?
I think that I mentioned to you that there's an event here every spring called Mini Bar,
Mm,
and you get 1,200 of the nerdiest, techiest, geekiest, fun folks in our uh, technology, marketing, data analytics type community. We get together for a full day on a Saturday at Best Buy corporate headquarters. 1,200 of us from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. 12 sessions going on at the same time. Every year I do a presentation. Well, for 13 of the 15 years now, I've done a presentation called IT Career Maintenance. And the gist of it is I give folks the idea like, here's what's going on in our tech town, jobs, salaries, working remote, like whatever is the trend, right? It's been 13 years. Every year, for the last 4 or 5 years now, I've asked a question, which sort of goes in stages. So I asked them to raise their hand. And so this year I had about 150, 160 people in a room. And so I asked the question, first of all, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, raise your hand. If you haven't, and then some people do, right? So it graduates. So how many of you don't have a LinkedIn profile? How many of you not accessed your LinkedIn profile in the last year? How many of you not looked at your InMail in the last 6 months? How many of you just have an orphaned profile? How many of you only have just like the bare basics? It's nearly a third of the room.
mm,
And so when I think about sourcing, right, I did a presentation at SourceCon here in Minneapolis last fall, and it was sort of my version of recruiting at events, pre, during, and post. I wrote an article for SourceCon back in 2016 about how not to get replaced by a robot. Funny how that all came up, right? Come
mm.
about. But the gist of it is,
Yeah.
is that I'm now in a room full of 150, to make the math simple, technologists in our town, 50 of whom AI can't find. Okay, you're telling me that there's that large of a pool. Now, even if it's not a third, is it 15%? Is it 10%? We still need us to be doing this job. We still need to be going out, shaking hands and saying hello and going to coffee shops and going to tech events or going to co-working spaces in our town. You've been talking a lot about this too, about this being um, a bit more of a branding exercise than maybe sourcers have been used to in the past. We
Sure.
need to start. Wow, this is a long ramble. I wasn't expecting
No,
this.
no, no, please go ahead. You
We need
you're
to be
doing great.
doing this branding piece, right? Who are we as an individual representing our company or our clients with the opportunities that we have? Because if I've got a bot, the candidate's got a bot, the bots talk to each other at some point, we still have to interact as humans.
Yeah.
And if we're posting job descriptions that are, again, AI created, which may come from a hiring manager, so now they're double not probably as authentic as they could be, and you've got a candidate using AI to create a resume and a cover letter, if they do, for that job. At some point, though, now we just have things talking back and forth, and a human better get involved at some point. So I think that our jobs change. Um, I do think that some of us end up fading out with the technology, but I don't think of this as a career ender for most folks.
Okay.
And
Okay.
rant.
Okay. I think you sort of easing some of the anxiety that I've been feeling in the force.
Well, to be clear though, I mean, I have felt it too for the last 2 years, right?
Yeah.
I do have a recruiter brand in my town. Like I'm also an introvert and I hate talking about myself. But like
Mm.
if you do a search for Minnesota Headhunter on Google, like I'm half of the first page results. Like you can find me. But I think about how do I need to keep evolving my skills, my activity, my efficiency. So I think about AI stuff, but I'm thinking about how do I make me more productive? How do I automate the things to make me a little bit faster?
Yeah.
Um, I don't think that AI is going to, for me as a human, Paul DeBettignies in Minneapolis, it's not going to, it's going to impact me. It'll change me. And I also think it'll change me for the better in the end. I just may have some invisible scars like we all may have between now and then.
Yeah. Some of the arguments I've been hearing pro and against
Yeah.
uh, sourcing as a career, some have been pretty compelling on both sides. So, like on
Yeah.
one side, I'm hearing AI is going to find the candidate, it's going to engage the candidate, it's going to screen the candidate, and push of a button, we're going to have, 10 qualified, interested, and available people at our fingertips at any given moment. So I hear that argument a lot. And I also
Did you see my
hear,
look? I already went like,
yes,
I've already got the reply.
but I also hear things to the contrary that there's just some things that AI can't do.
Hmm?
There's those traits that are uniquely human, being interpersonal. One theme that comes up a lot in the conferences I've been to is, okay, you found them, now what?
Yeah.
What good is it to find these people if you can't talk to them,
Yeah.
if you can't negotiate, if you can't sell, if your company isn't attractive to that candidate? It's a bit of salesmanship, a little bit interpersonal skills,
Yeah.
critical thinking. Those soft skills become very important, even more important, because a lot of people are so dependent on technology. I know there are recruiters out there and sourcers out there who don't want to talk to people. They
Mhm.
want to use the
Yeah.
technology. They want to send out. If somebody doesn't respond, then that particular source's response is, let me send 100 more emails. You know.
But at some point in time, you actually run out of people in a skill
Yeah.
set in a city. Like in the
Yeah.
Bay Area, you can say I'm gonna spam 100 React developers every week, week after week after week after week after week, because they come and go. You can't do that in Minneapolis. You
Hmm.
can't do. There's not enough. It's not that transient of a population where people are always coming and going. Like at
Exactly.
some point in time, we got to start making relationships with folks.
Exactly.
It's just that we've always done a pretty censored. I'll use the word awful instead of the other one I was going to use. Like we do a poor job at this. I just I actually I would after we're done chatting, I'm going to go back to my 2016 article, but it is this part of um, I'm going to give you a different angle. Someone
Okay.
asked me this the other day. Paul, what's the first thing you do when you call your credit card company, your bank, or your whatever? I'm like, I don't know. We were talking about AI stuff. Well, what do you do? I go, I don't know. He goes, you hit zero. You ask for an operator, you ask for customer service, you ask for a
Yeah.
representative.
I'm guilty of that.
Like, how many times do you actually deal with the automation part? So I would pitch this. I appreciate that in the current economy that's sort of flat in most industries and most regions in the US, sort of flat, kind of stuck in mud right now. So I appreciate that we can force these candidates to go through some of these processes where humans are not available to them. What happens when we have a next version of a sequel to a Great Resignation? And candidates are like, I'm out. If I can't
Mm.
talk to a human, I'm out.
Yeah.
So are you only go like what happens to your candidate pool then? What happens to your reputation? What happens when you have the reputation in your town, your region, your industry that you don't actually get to talk to a human when you apply with a role with us? I mean, we're asking people to make changes on a fundamental part of their life, right? Like I for years I've always joked that We'll replace the roof on our house when we need to. We'll get an oil change when we need to. We'll go to the doctor when we need to, although guys are a little slow with that. But we don't really tend to manage our careers until it's a little too late. We do the
Right.
same thing with recruiting too. We don't tend to recruit until it's a little bit too late. And now we're going to force people to use automated tools and never talk to a human on a thing that pays for all of those things I just spoke about. I would find it hard to believe that even in the medium term, that most humans are going to be like, that sounds amazing to me, right? Like if I'm applying for a chief people officer role, surely there's going to be executive recruitment.
Yeah.
If I'm applying for a director of technology role, likely and below, likely I'm going to want to talk to a human. I want to find out if is your dumpster fire actually better than the dumpster fire I'm in, or am I just going from one fire to another blaze? And you can't get that from a bot. You can't.
Yeah.
The thing that I think about is I've been a full desk recruiter my whole time. I've never been just a sourcer. I've never just been a recruiter. Like I do it all. I do think about large companies, global companies that have sourcing teams, dedicated sourcing teams. I wonder what happens to them. For me as a sourcer slash recruiter slash people operations person, I need these tools to make me faster, more efficient, to optimize my daily workflow so that I can do a better overall job. The question is that if you had 10 corporate recruiters, now do you only need 4 or 5 or 6?
Mm,
That's where I think
mm.
some angst can come into this. If we're going to be reluctant to grow, if we're going to be reluctant to learn, if we're going to be reluctant to become talent advisors to both sides, the business and the candidates, you might have a job issue. You might have a job issue, a career issue in the long run. I think that's true. And I think that, so if people are having that angst, I think that's legit.
Yeah. Yeah. Something you said there resonated with me too. Again, probably because of our earlier conversation. I see recruiting or sourcing rather as an arms race, I think, between competitors. You know, if competitor A has higher EZ, then competitor B needs to have higher EZ to be competitive, you know.
Yep.
Um, but if all things being considered, both parties have the same tool, then what advantage do they have? You know,
And I think
it,
it's a two-way street. It's what advantage do they have and what's the detriment to the candidate? Because now
okay.
if we're all using the same technology or type tools, and if we're all doing the same sort of Boolean strings, I appreciate that some people are way better at this than I am, right? So they will, as you and I were talking about, they will find candidates I won't find. That's for certain.
Yeah.
So there is some advantages within the tool. Um, and if we're all doing drip campaigns to our 100, 100, 100, 100 React developers, what does that happen to in-mail replies and email replies when candidates now are getting pinged every 10 days, a month, a quarter by a bunch of companies? I just think that everything's going to get lost in the noise.
Yeah.
That comes
Yeah.
back to your branding conversation and us attracting people to us. And by the way, if this happens, we're going to find out there's a lot of companies that flat out suck. Period.
Yeah.
Next paragraph.
Sure.
Because if what you're now selling to a candidate is a great opportunity with a good career path and a company that actually cares about you, now we're actually going to learn you don't have those things. And then you and I would put on our sourcing hat and call them a source.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that AI is going to be able to be smart enough to know where we should be sourcing at. Like that one's going to take a long, long time. Like it's not just, you can not just like say, who are the 15 largest SaaS companies in Minneapolis? Who are the 3 that suck the most to work at?
Yep.
I don't think that AI is going to know this stuff, but I do because I go to an event and I go to a co-working space with technology people. Can't replace that.
And some of that too, I think some people who are hearing that comment are thinking, well, they can check Glassdoor or some other equivalent. But companies aren't always on top of that, you know. So someone
Not
can
always
post,
or rarely ever would be maybe a better phrase.
yeah. So a company could, someone could post something negative about the company sees it and they correct it, but it's not reflected on the Glassdoor.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Well, and another part to this AI stuff and the AI tools, and again, like I'm a Hire Easy fan, um, been a customer, right?
Sure.
and seek out before that too. I have a LinkedIn Lite license, not the full-blown recruiter, a Lite. Um, all of these tools are dependent on a human actually updating their content. And some of the tools that are doing the scraping are then dependent on LinkedIn. Like there's a delay in here.
Yeah.
And so is that weeks, months? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. Like, but if I'm using a tool that scrapes LinkedIn, um, and someone updated the profile in January, but the tool hasn't picked up the update yet. So if I'm trying to hire, if I'm looking for some director of technologies, but then like 4 of the candidates to become CTOs in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
The AI tool, the tool only, right? We know that it's data in, data out. And if it's late, if it's lagging, then the tool's not even up to date. The AI isn't up to date anyway either. A
Yeah.
human would know these things.
You hit on another point that's in the back of my mind. These AI tools, no matter how great and awesome they are, they only can find publicly available data.
Yeah.
So a sourcer is someone who could do some good primary research. They're talking to one person and they say, "Hey, who do you know?" They're doing those follow-up questions that
Yeah.
from a gut instinct that AI can't replicate. And then also, something that sourcers definitely know is that when you search the internet, you're really only searching like maybe 10% of the surface. There's plenty of, for those that don't know, look up the term deep web, right? So deep web are all these databases that are accessible online, but they're behind a firewall, you know, and you can't access them.
Yeah.
They're academic databases, maybe they're medical records, or maybe they're all kinds of things, right? But Google and the AI tools can only find publicly available
Yeah.
information. So there's a lot of people you're not able to find. I'll give you an example. So, and if I remember, I'll link to this in the show in the comments of this video. So I wrote an article about um, finding, I forgot what example I gave, but essentially I looked at, I went to Amazon.com and I found the author of some science book or whatever, right? And I said, look, this is a science book. Let's look at the comments. This author received 100 comments saying this is the most awesome science book I've ever read, right? So this person's work is validated by the crowd of being,
Mm-hmm.
a great science book. I said, okay, so look at his, let's go look at his LinkedIn profile. Looked at his LinkedIn profile, sparse, name, rank, serial number.
For
And I'm
real.
like, okay, so if I did a search for this guy on LinkedIn or use some other kind of tool,
Mm-hmm.
I probably wouldn't have found this person because this person is not promoting themselves. They weren't even promoting their book on their
So
own
if
LinkedIn profile.
you see it on Amazon and I don't,
Yeah.
we go to the LinkedIn profiles and our perceptions are different. You still know this person as being an expert in their space.
Yep.
I look at them as who the heck is this? And I've already moved on in 2.5 to 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
It, and and does this end up being then that the AI tools are going to pick up the best of branders? Like, so if we're going to start ranking candidates within an AI tool, so now are we going to get to the part because you've got React Developer 5 times in your LinkedIn profile, so you rank higher in the LinkedIn search results that you will now rank higher in an AI tool? Does that really mean that the person who is keyword, buzzword, acronym stuffed their profile going to rank higher than someone who didn't? And of course, the answer is likely yes. Okay, so like, are we going to have a proliferation again of like LinkedIn branding gurus selling courses at like $500 to $3,000 to entice people to make their LinkedIn profile better? And of course, the answer is probably yes. Jim, at the end of all of this, like if my bot's talking to their bot and bots to bots, don't we end up falling back to this part where humans need to connect again anyway?
I think you're right because as you say that, I'm reminded of this trend in the early 2000s where when you submitted your resume, when you apply for a job, you would have certain keywords in white, and half
Oh
of the
yeah.
practices would
Yep.
pick up the
Yep.
resume, you know, and it would score higher. So
Yep.
I think with ChatGPT's assistance, people are white word stuffing their resumes for a new era in a way.
And so we're now in like, we've seen this cycle once, twice, now a third time,
Yeah.
where this has become a short-term fix for job seekers. And I understand why, going back to the angst, anxiety that a lot of the folks in our world have, right? Like I talk to people who in the Midwest, or in the Bay Area too, but they say, but look at all the tech layoffs. I'm like, I don't know what the last number is. Is it 20, 30, 40% of the tech layoffs were actually recruiter, HR, DEI folks? So look, we understand your angst because we actually were the majority of the angst. We were the
Yeah.
majority of the folks that got let go.
Yeah.
I just think that I keep on wondering where are the adults in the room? We need more folks in our industry, in our space, to be talking about these things and to have conversations where we can agree and disagree and be friends at the end. For those who are putting their head in the sand, you know me, I'm a pretty caring, empathetic guy. But if you're putting your head in the sand, good luck to you. Like this is for real though. Like this is actually here. It's not coming, it's here, right? Shannon Pritchett talks about it all the time. It's here. It's actually already been here for some time, right? But we're coming up on the 2-year anniversary of ChatGPT rocking everybody's world.
Yeah.
And if we think of how much has changed, and it's also funny how in some ways it's already changed back to where we were November of 2 years ago. You keep on seeing the news about these LLMs and these AI companies. Now they're running out of data. And like they've already consumed what they can consume. So the exponential growth of these isn't going to be what it was. And they're worrying about valuations. There are now 2 AI companies that are hiring humans to write content, to create more content for which to learn from.
Wow.
Okay,
Wow.
so who's doing the writing? Like I assume that if you're doing legal stuff, that you actually got like legit lawyers and attorneys and people. But I think the hype cycle got a little ahead of this one.
Okay.
Let me again state, it's going to impact things. It may reduce the number of people who are in our industry in the long run. I don't think it eliminates the industry. I just don't.
Interesting. And
So says Paul on November 18th, 2024. Let's timestamp it.
in the year of our Lord. I'll close out with one more comment too, because I was on a panel discussion at ERE recently, and this comment seemed to resonate with the crowd. With so much AI tools out there doing everything so human beings can do other stuff that only human beings can do, why not gear up your training on the human skills, on the interpersonal skills, on the critical thinking skills, on negotiation,
being a
relationship
human,
management.
just being human.
Yeah. Because if you are the mind that these tools are going to do everything, and you're going to have time to do your other stuff, then gird up your skill set on the uniquely human interpersonal skills that you need to do the job once these tools have found you all these people.
But by the way, that's the hard part anyway, right? It's easy to teach people how to do Boolean search strings. Easy in quotes. It's not easy, but I think it's easier than teaching people how to be human.
And to get over the fear of actually picking up the phone and talking to someone.
Oh, that's a whole weekend conversation to itself.
Oh, yeah. Indeed. Paul, if someone wanted to reach out to you for more information or just to network with you, how could they find you online?
Yeah, so MN for Minnesota, mnheadhunter.com, Paul at, or they could be in Vegas, SourceCon in the spring.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. All right, sir. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you, and I'll see you on the next one.
Thanks. See you, friend.
In a blind taste test, we compared the sourcing and recruiting training of various companies to the training available at SourceCon Academy. These are the results. Oh, this is so exciting, so exciting. All right, here we go. Put the blindfold on now. This is, never done this before. All right. I see nothing, so let's get started.
What are your first impressions?
I'm not impressed.
it just tastes like any other training that's out there. I mean, I've experienced lots of other recruitment training and sourcing training, and this, it's all the same, nothing different.
So what do you think of this product?
You know, right away I can tell this is something different. Huh. Wow. Wow, this is amazing.
Experience the difference for yourself. Register for an online class today and take your sourcing to the next level.
I like this. I like this.